Hey bestie, hi, how are ya? I'm about to share my May reading wrap up with you all. In this reading wrap up, I'll be sharing a book about a creepy mom.
Darling, we only want what's best for you.
One that was a hot ass mess. And another one that has me still questioning, what the fuck did I just read? And 5 other books. Let's start off with the creepy mom in Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Oshimi. Bestie, you heard of the term mama's boy, right? Well, that's definitely the case here. I met Seiichi, who happens to be a regular boy with a regular life. His family appears to be normal, and his mother loves him very much. Aww. Sounds normal, right? Until one terrible summer, that all changes. Don't let the cover or vague synopsis fool you. Although this was slow, it was very dark and creepy. There's not much dialogue in this one.
But Jeannie, there's not much dialogue in all manga.
No.
But this one is less dialogue than your typical manga, which is fine because let me tell you, the illustrations say it all. Oshimi sure does know how to tell the story through the art in the panels. I love that while the dialogue said one thing, the expression said so much more. The illustrations made you feel like it was heartwarming while also making you feel this sense of dread.
We aren't worried at all, darling. Soon you'll see things our way.
There was just something about it that was so eerie and creepy. Oshimi definitely wanted you to pay attention to the expressions because there was so many close-ups in this. Let me show you just a few that I found pretty creepy. First of all, when you start off with the book, look at this. Look at this. I don't know, there's just something about this and like what's going on before it that makes it's so like creepy, or like there's something that's gonna happen. There's this that his mom is like waking him up and she just has like these kind of like weird expressions, and it's just something about those expressions and like the eyes that Oshimi wants you to like pay attention to. It just has like this like unnerving, uncomfortable feeling about it. I gave this one 4 stars. There's just something about this story that had me like so creeped out. I'm not sure if it's the mental illness or like the strange obsession that's being displayed here, but one thing I am sure of is that I am excited to continue on with this series and find out. Next up is The One I Left Behind by Piper Rain. So this one is a classic story. You know, like boy goes off into the world and leaves the girl behind to fulfill his dreams. Eventually you grow up and you get over it, right? But what happens when a boy comes back to town, coaches your son's football team, and makes you start feeling again? Ugh, who wants to do all that, right? And to top it off, leaves you feeling like you have to protect your heart. Well, that's the dilemma that bestie Jillian had with Ben. So this is the first book in the Plain Daisy Ranch series and my first time reading something from this author duo. I haven't read many small town romances, but I'm starting to realize that I'm a sucker for them. I really enjoyed the chemistry between Ben and Jillian. It was nice to see the way fate was so determined to get them back together that it kept kind of like forcing them to see each other. And let me tell you, fate wasn't the only one working behind the scenes to get Ben and Jillian back together. Their friends and family were in on it too. You could tell that they were really meant to be because the minute they got back together, the feelings were just still there. It was like if it never left. I'm also a sucker for stuff like that. The Newton family was so much fun to read. These men had me laughing out loud every time they got together. I also love Jillian and Clayton. I was gonna say Clayton. I guess that's the New York coming out of me. Clayton. Jillian and Clayton. Although Jillian dealt with a lot with Clayton's father, it showed that she had such a strong relationship with her son and that she raised him well. He was such an absolute sweetheart. I love the healthy relationship that he and his mom had. Like, the way that he protected her and gave her advice was very heartwarming to read. However, I did wish that we were able to see more of Ben and Clayton's relationship develop. I felt like it was more told and not shown. Like, just kind of like sprinkled in there. All I know is that I would love to see where Clayton's story goes. So yeah, future book maybe? Can we get a future book of Clayton? My main qualms with this story is that I felt like Jillian kind of gave in too soon. Like, everything just happened so quickly between her and Ben. Your girl was hoping to get like this sexy retired football player groveling at his feet, but I didn't get that. I would have probably gotten that had this book been like 100 pages longer, because it is a short read, so can't complain. All in all, I gave this one 3.5 stars. This was a quick, sweet read, which was nice to have as a palate cleanser, and I would definitely recommend this and look forward to reading the brothers' friends to lovers romance. Another book I read in May is One Cursed Rose by Rebecca Zanetti. So bestie, you know the life of a social media influencer, right? You know, the typical post something to gain followers, go live, promote, yada yada, right? Well, that's what Alana's life is like as the sole heir to Aquarius Social. The thing is that there's somebody that's trying to bring it down. And what's her father's solution? Well, to give her away in marriage and create a coalition between the competing socials, of course. I mean, duh. There was absolutely no other idea that he could think of. But things go left when someone tries to go for the heads. What makes things even worse is that she gets rescued, or shall I say kidnapped, by Thorn, her social media nemesis. When I saw that this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling and a dark romance, I was immediately sold. Yes, I knew I had to pick this up. This author is pretty known, so I was equally as excited to pick up this book and see if I would enjoy their writing. Now, I did enjoy their writing and the suspense. However, I felt like this book was a hot mess. I did not find this to be a dark romance. Instead, I kind of felt like this was a romantic suspense with a few sprinkles of dark elements into it, and barely even that. I kind of felt misled by this, to be honest, and like it was just trying too hard to be a dark romance. The other problem that I found with this was the use of the gems to like power the computers. Although I did like the unique take on it, I just couldn't understand how it worked and how it was used to generate power to the owner of that gem. I just felt that the world building was totally lacking, and there was things that were like oddly just left hanging, like too many questions unanswered, plot holes within. It just didn't work for me. But I did like the unique concept, though. I'll say that. I'll give that. But then it's also, when you think about it, you could have a unique concept and it go downhill because you didn't execute. And that's what kind of happened here. Then the other problem I had is the chemistry, or shall I say lack thereof.
It was just not believable to me.
Thorn was like super obsessed with Alana to the point of being her stalker.
For a short amount of time.
But nothing was ever explained as to
why.
I just didn't believe that he was obsessed with her. It just wasn't there. It wasn't flowing. And listen, bestie, you know me, okay? And if you don't know me because you're new here, hi, how are ya? Chemistry and being able to swoon is very important to me in romance. And this just was not giving. It was just not giving those qualities and those things. And yeah, it just didn't work. Not for me. No. Oh, and another issue that I had with this was the way that it kind of like wrapped up, and the person that cursed Thorn, it just wasn't believable. It was just something else that was lackluster, and it just didn't give that oh my god factor, you know? Yeah. So ultimately, I gave this one 2.5 stars. I was invested in the story, obviously, since I did finish it, but it left me disappointed. So yeah. I also got to read Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco, and this one is the continuation to Stalking Jack the Ripper. Yeah, that is the book title. I had to think about it for a minute there because I was like, am I saying it correctly? But yeah, I did. After the shocking discovery of Jack the Ripper's true identity, I went with bestie Audrey Rose to London, along with the ever so annoying, charming, charming Thomas Cresswell. We found ourselves on a journey to Romania. Yes, I know, I just had to say it like that. Only to find ourselves another notorious unaliver, Vlad the Impaler. I was gonna say Impaler. Yeah, Impaler. Whose thirst for blood seems to be coming alive again. But one thing I love about this is that Maniscalco is still bringing those like Sherlock Holmes whodunit vibes, because I love me a good whodunit story. I also like the fact that she still uses like these people from history to tell the story and adding like a dash of fantasy into it as well. Those pieces of the story is, to me, what makes it very interesting. As much as bestie Audrey doesn't want to admit that she's a pick-me girl, sweetie, you are. But I also think that she's pretty badass. I love that she's flawed and doesn't back down and speaks up anytime a man tries to make her feel inferior. I also like that Carrie Maniscalco made things a bit realistic in the way that Audrey was dealing with PTSD after the events that took place in Stalking Jack the Ripper. Not only is she dealing with grief from the people she lost, but she's also dealing with anxiety, hallucinations, flashbacks, and at times defeat. Now, what I didn't love about this is that it did kind of drag in the middle, and I did find myself getting pretty bored. And I know that it's not because of the historical piece of this, because Vlad the what? Okay, let's rewind and do this again. I don't think it was the historical piece of this, because I was fascinated by Vlad the Impaler when I was in middle school. Yeah, I know, weird. I think it had to do with the writing and the pacing of this one. But then again, I did kind of feel that way with the first one, to the point of wanting to DNF. I guess with this one, it was like similar, but I don't remember if I wanted to DNF this one. So there's that. I think that another reason that could have happened is because the whole mystery piece to this kind of got lost, with the romance kind of being more of the main focus in this one. I did mention this in this video, and I do not see them being together, even though I know that's where it's going to lead to. I don't know if I'll ever actually ship them and want them to be together, because so far with this one, I'm already just like, yeah, no. Yeah, and I still feel that way now. I still don't ship them. I kind of started to find myself getting annoyed by that. It's like I wanted more of the mystery and less of the flirting and kissing. What I will say is that I did enjoy the banter, but then again, I don't ship them, so that could be it. Overall, I am still kind of up in the air with the rating. In my last video, I did say that I was gonna give Stalking Jack the Ripper 2.5 or I gave it a 2.5. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of in the same place, or maybe a 3. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's either a 2.5 or a 3. Next up is The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I just literally almost hit my face with it. Bestie, I went on a remote island off the coast of Ireland to Jules and Will's wedding. And let me tell you, this wedding was scandalous. Everyone on this island has some kind of tea to spill about each other, and they also have a motive. This was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, right? Not really, because someone did not leave this island alive. Okay, so bestie, you already know this has been on my TBR for years. Okay? So this is like a trophy. I'm so glad that I read this, finally. Whodunit tropes that take place on a remote island, I come to find that it's just always a good time. Foley, yeah. She definitely showed me why I love thrillers in this trope. I love the fact that there's like 6 people on this island with no way out. Then there's always, for some reason, something that happens with the weather. You know, like it's just a part of this trope, I guess, because it happened in The Fury as well. And one thing that I really liked as well is the part where you not only don't know who was unalived, but you also don't know who unalived them. You know? Yeah. So maybe I should put that in better. So I love not knowing who was unalive and not knowing who the unaliver was. Yeah. And let's talk about the people that I met there at this wedding. They were all unlikable. They each had secrets about each other, and they weren't the best people. And trust me,
There was tea.
they were terrible people, okay? But the thing is that there was something about this story that took away from the mystery. It didn't really make me eager to find out who the person that was found dead in the beginning was. Yeah, it's just something about it, and I'm pretty sure that it could be of the way it was formatted. I don't know, but yeah, it just took away from it. Just a heads up, bestie, this is a slow burn thriller. So if you're going into this expecting to be turning the pages, flying through it, and all of that jazz, you're not. It's pretty slow. And I know you must be asking,
Jeannie, is it worth it?
I mean, I think it is, because once you start finding out all the drama and then finding out who the victim is in like the last 25% of the book, I think it's pretty worth it. Then again, I do love me some drama, so there's also that. But what I will say is that when you do get the reveal, it kind of just abruptly ends, and you don't get to find out like anything that happens afterwards, you know?
I need closure, Lucy. Like, give me closure. I have issues, okay?
Well, all in all, I gave this 4 stars. It was fun. I had a good time on this island. These people had all the tea to spill. And besides, it doesn't take much to please me in a thriller.
Yes it does, Jeannie.
Okay, maybe it does. But for me, a good whodunit thriller is when the author has me all over the place, like a chicken without a head, trying to figure out who did it. Well, you did a good job. And Lucy Foley was able to do just that. Okay, so I was also able to read Bunny by Mona Awad. And bestie, I know you're probably like, what the hell? Oh, hell no, right?
Also, are you aware that this book only has 3.51 average rating?
Firstly, ill. Secondly, yes.
Anyways,
Let me tell you about these weird but fascinating people I met in this one. I got to meet Samantha, who happens to be this scholarship student in New England's Warren University, something like that. Then there's the Bunnies, a group of sinister girls that seem to move and speak as one. Everything changes when Samantha gets an invitation to the smut salon, which causes her to ditch her old friend, Ava. Samantha starts to find herself deeper and deeper into their monstrous experiments, leaving her to question reality. Listen, bestie, this is the strangest book I ever read. Like, seriously. Still to this day, I am questioning, like, what the fuck did I just read? Still to this day, I am left here like, is this real? Like, was this even a book? Was this actually happening? What is happening? What was going on? Yeah. This was like a whole mix between the Mean Girls, the Craft, Frankenstein, and Alice in Wonderland, all like in a pot, just mixed in there, like literally. I was like in a fever dream reading this. I didn't know whether Samantha was on something, whether she was hallucinating. Did the bunnies give her something? Were they real? What's going on? Like, this literally had me just all over the place questioning reality, even for me. And I'm not sure if that was what Mona Awad's intentions were. Maybe that was the point. She wanted you to feel like that. It was just like something would happen and things would be said, and then I'm just left here like, wait, what? That really happened? Like, is she dreaming? Like, is this for real? Literally, this is how this book had me all throughout, and it was just so weird. Like, the bunnies themselves were creepy too, especially the one, her name was Creepy Doll. I was just like, Creepy Doll, what? Then there's the Duchess, then there's who else was it? I don't remember the other one's names. I felt like I was Alice in Wonderland. Like, I was just left like looking at everybody like, wait, huh? What? Yeah. I was so like intrigued with this story and wanting to know like what really went down here, you know? Because I wanted to see what other people had to say, you know? Like, I just wanted to know. From what people said, it's supposed to be like a form of mental illness, and that is what you're experiencing. And I was just left like, that makes sense. If that's what this is, it makes sense. I can understand why Margaret Atwood says, oh bunny, you are so genius. I'm still just left here like, what the fuck did I just read? But also like, wow, that's fucking amazing. With all of that, I gave this one 4 stars, and I do look forward to possibly reading this again, probably in the fall, actually. I think this would be a great fall read. So if I do get to reread it in the fall, I'm going to annotate it and deeply dive and dissect this book because I just want to see like if that's like all those things, but I feel like it is, you know? Yeah. Anyways, next. Next book. So, because May was Asian, Asian American Pacific Island Heritage Month, something like that, I decided to go with Lalani of the Distant Sea by Erin Entrada Kelly. So, bestie, I've met Lalani, who's this 12-year-old girl with an impossible task. When her mother falls ill with an incurable disease, Lalani embarks on this journey across the sea to safeguard her own future. So upon reading this, I felt like this reminded me a lot of Moana. And not in the sense of them being from the same culture, because I am strongly aware that this book is based on Filipino culture. But what I mean is that in the way that the stories are told in here, and the fact that they are very dark. I really love that this story is infused with Filipino culture. Although I didn't know any of these stories or the characters that are in them. I appreciated learning more about Filipino culture and the lessons that you are meant to take away from each of these stories. And while I enjoyed the folklore and understood that it was tied to Leilani's journey, I didn't feel connected with the characters. It felt more like it was there like as a vessel to push the story across. And that kind of led me to not really feel anything for Leilani or anyone else for that matter. I also felt like there was too many stories trying to be infused within the storyline. There was so many characters, terms, and stories that it kind of made me not only confused, but made me not enjoy the story that much. Maybe it would have worked better for me if there was just like one main story that was the focus, like one main folklore piece, you know? Like the folklore piece is about the sea, which would have kind of made sense to me, being that Leilani's whole journey is based on the sea, you know? I think that for me, that would have just worked out way better. I also think that the way that this was formatted also had me confused because it was like a back and forth thing in between. You would get the actual story, like Leilani's story, but then thrown in there would also be like a whole like chapter or story that was a folklore. It kind of just threw me off. And then there was points where I found myself bored. I really kind of was considering a few times DNFing. So with all of that being said, I gave this one 2 stars. While I really loved the whole Filipino culture and the folklore in this and appreciated what the author was doing, it just started to feel like a chore to get through. And when a book feels like that, it isn't really entertaining. It just became too confusing and I kind of felt like I was losing brain cells getting through this. So yeah. When I first read the blurb for this, it had me interested. Could you just imagine like having a place where you have access to poisons to, you know, kind of just with his head. And yeah, to me that sounded great. It had like fantasy aspect with hints of magical realism in it. I was sold automatically. But the thing is, as I kept reading, that excitement started to like dull down a bit. But what I will say is that I did enjoy the historical parts of this more than I did the modern time parts. The unfortunate thing of a dual timeline, especially when it's going from past to present, is that for the most part, I noticed that most times I do enjoy one over the other. And it usually does tend to be the historical parts that I enjoy more. I think that Caroline, I believe her name was, I just found her boring and I didn't care for her. I didn't connect with her. And yeah, it just didn't do it for me. As opposed to like Nella and Eliza's timeline. Theirs I enjoyed even more so, and I was having quite a blast in their timeline because I don't know, I just found it more interesting. It could also be because of the fact that that's where the apothecary, you know, like was, and that's how it started, and that seemed to like grab my attention more, especially like the storyline that was going on there, as opposed to Caroline's, where hers was just her finding information about the apothecary. Yeah, I just didn't find it entertaining. I also felt like the whole like plot for Caroline was just kind of like unnecessary in my opinion. I felt like this whole like lie thing, it was just kind of like, really, seriously, that it just didn't intrigue me. It didn't keep my interest, and again, it just felt unnecessary. And I think that's why I just didn't care. It's like I found myself kind of like rolling my eyes every time Caroline's POV came back, because I was just like, oh yes, that. And then I feel like this is just like a case of like something being not overhyped, because this book wasn't overhyped, but I guess you can say like something that was like overly promised, but it didn't deliver on those promises. You know, it was just like I was expecting this to be like full of intrigue and mystery, something like full of maybe suspense and magical realism, and I really didn't feel that here. It kind of sucked too, because I was really like liking, you know, the whole premise of this story and where it was going, but again, it just didn't deliver those things for me, and for that reason I gave it a 2.5 star rating. So bestie, I'd love to hear your May experiences. Share your favorite books or not so favorite books in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for my next video. Until next time, stay lit. Bye.